ahead.
Okay, good morning, Niskayuna. It is May 3rd, and we are at the Economic Development and Environmental Conservation Committee. And I guess we will start with attendance.
We have, Jamie Pucci, Greenwood, Chairman Delarada, Elena Finnan, and Rita Ogren McCall.
Very good. I don't see anybody, but do we have anybody from the public with any comments or concerns?
I didn't get any requests for this meeting.
Okay, and that brings us to the minutes of April 12th. And if we've had a chance to review those, I will make a motion to approve.
Second.
Are there any changes or additions?
I'm abstaining in the minutes since I wasn't present.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, with Mr. Walsh abstaining. And that brings us to our resolutions.
Okay, so our first resolution is the proclamation recognizing Arbor Day in the town of Niskayuna. We're doing it after Arbor Day, obviously, but it'll be a good time to talk about all of the good things that happened during Arbor Day. And it's just a regular proclamation that we do, and it's required for us to be a tree city. So we'll get that ready to go. It's actually mostly written. I've already worked on it a little bit with Elena. And then the second resolution is a resolution to accept a linkage study grant through the Capital Region Transportation Council. I think this may be the third month that it's on it, but I did talk to the Capital District Transportation Committee, and they are thinking that we'll get the MOU next week. So Elena, it'll be a little bit tricky, but if we get the MOU next week and we're happy with it, we might be able to get on the meeting at the end of this month, which would be nice.
Okay, I mean, our finance meeting's a week later than usual. It's the 14th, so we have, I think, through the end of that week, we have some time still.
So hopefully then they'll get that to us, and she gave me the whole schedule of how it works, so it'll be nice to get that going.
Very good. And that brings us to Milton Keys and the Airbnb issue.
So Milton Keys, the planning board had a really good discussion the last meeting, really diving into the code more of what we want to do. We're looking at both the kind of state legal code. We're looking at some of the recommendations from Airbnb. I am taking training from the Capital District Regional Planning Committee, so the planning organization for all of our towns, and using all of that to update the North Elba code. So at the last planning board meeting, we discussed the why you want to adopt short-term rental code, because apparently short-term rental codes get litigated fairly regularly. So a couple of things they said to make sure you have in your code is you have to have a really good why, and you have to have a really good definitions, which is why we're starting with the North Elba code, because apparently their definitions have been pretty thoroughly reviewed. And then from there, we'll work on how we roll it out, short-term rental regulations in the town of Niskayuna.
Any idea of how long the short term would be?
So the standard definition for short-term rental is 30 days or less. There are other places that have a different one, but that's the standard one, so we'll probably just go with that. Yeah.
And I know that there is a lot of concern about this summer and the neighborhood around Milton Keys enjoying the summer. It's going to be difficult to get some of this stuff implemented, I imagine, by the summer. But is there anything we can do besides police enforcement of noise ordinance for the summer?
Yeah, so Clark and I came up with a timeline for sort of maximum super aggressive adoption. And it's 6 months minimum. And if there's one meeting where we don't necessarily agree with exactly the code text, then it pushes it out. So I don't mind sharing a schedule or a range of schedules with people, but the minimum for getting a hold on the short-term rental is, I mean, bare minimum. You'd have to hit every single meeting. It's 6 months. And that's because of the legal requirements of the seeker referral, the public hearings at the planning board and at the town board.
So realistically, we're probably talking 8 months.
Yeah, I mean, if for some reason the code, but like we were saying, you don't want to just throw a code down and give it a try, especially like a short-term rental code, because for instance, one of the things we were considering is that the homeowner has to actually be in the home, and instead of renting the whole room, the whole house, they could rent rooms. That was one of the ways that people have tried to address short-term rentals. But if we adopt a code that allows people to rent rooms, right now we only have 4 Airbnbs, but that may actually encourage the rental of rooms. So we really have to sort of play out the whole thing and how it's going to impact our zoning and how it's going to impact all of our districts. So I want to do it quickly to help people who are, suffering, but also make sure that it's done right so that it doesn't have unintended consequences with the conscious,
And so it doesn't get defeated in court and we have to start all over again and wreck a whole nother summer.
Yeah, exactly. That's why you got to follow the process.
Yes.
And I know Kevin can jump in here. They were a little frustrated with the process at the planning board meeting.
Yeah.
But hopefully if we just keep the communication up. As far as the summer goes, I don't mind continuing to reach out to the owners and trying to make sure that they're on top of the rentals. The supervisor's office did do a lot of work, got the residents' phone numbers that they've been calling, and hopefully that'll help if there's something really, crazy happening there. But even in all the training, you take, if you don't have short-term rental regulations, enforcement is really, really almost impossible.
There's only so much you can do.
Yeah.
Okay, very good. And that brings us to the appointments for committees.
I actually don't have a big update on this. I've rescheduled one more meeting. I believe it may be next week. To finalize the policy and bring it back to you. So that will probably be a more bulky discussion at our next meeting in June.
Okay.
And then for 31 East Street, we discussed the land disposal last meeting and came to the conclusion that it would have to be put out to bid. And so I talked to the lady who had requested buying it and said, offered that if she wanted to do landscaping and stuff, she could do an easement with the town in this unit, and she does want to do that.
Very good.
So I don't know.
So we don't have to put it out to bid.
Nope. She's good with an easement, so we'll just have her draw up a plan of what she wants to do on that property, and then we could take a look at it at our next meeting, maybe.
Good. All right, Mr. Walsh.
Okay, some planning board updates. The first few items here are all been approved at the April 15th meeting, and that's Brookshire Drive, the directory sign, internal directory sign over at Tall Oaks Apartments, Glen Eddy, improvements to their community garden, and a shed to support, holding the tools and so on and so forth at the garden. That's all approved. Balltown Road, Papa John's Restaurant, and that's in Mohawk Commons, 412 Balltown Road. All right, those are all approved at April 15th. And then our last meeting on the 29th, the Capital District Jewish Holocaust Memorial, we granted them their 4-year extension. That brings them up to November of 2028. But with the condition that 2026, if nothing happens, they come back and give us an update of what's happening over there and where they stand. So at least we'll keep them engaged. And of course, if the Troy Road study impacts the Capital District Jewish Holocaust Memorial, that would also prompt another meeting with them, make sure that they're integrated appropriately. Oregon Ave, Stark Ave, it's a lot line adjustment approved, and Balltown Road to JCC, we approved a 30-foot diameter a year, which will be in the lower part of the, so it would be the west part of the property. Things that we're working on, 3905 State Street, new convenience store smoke shop. That we got to work with the applicant on that. He wasn't available, so we pulled the resolution the other night because we want, there's some pretty stringent conditions in there. We want to make sure he was on board with everything. 2546 Balltown at St. Peter's Health Partners. They're looking, that's building right over, actually across from GCC next to Craig over in that area. They were looking at putting a sign up high, 36 square foot sign. And we decided, planning board didn't support it. It wasn't unanimous, but we didn't support it. So we made a negative recommendation to the ZBA. Of course, the ZBA is the authority there, so we'll see what happens. Same thing with 1769 Union Street, Albany Med Urgent Care, Capital Cardiology want another sign, and that building's pretty much been signed to death over there. So we made a negative recommendation there also, but see what the ZBA has to say. One of the things is Complete Streets, one of their suggestions is always just have a number on the building. So if they want to put a large number somewhere that was appropriate. Now, if you're trying to find the building, you're really looking for the number, right?
Yeah.
So, and I think that was a good suggestion. That's what we kind of encourage them to do. Some new stuff coming in. This is all the old ShopRite Plaza or ShopRite. Yeah, I don't know. Is it going to be
Market
32?
Place.
Market 32 Place? Is what it's gonna be?
I think it said place, didn't
Place?
it? Claire? Yeah.
Yeah. So we got the TD Banks looking for all new signage there, and increase in signage also. I assume that has something to do maybe with Chase Bank being there. I'll make sure they're, because it's a tough building to see. And then Market 32, all their signage, and we expect approval at our next meeting, which is May 13th for all their signage.
When are they looking to open? Do we know?
They said they're hoping for June, June.
Oh,
early
great.
June.
So in a month.
Yeah, he said they're moving along pretty good.
All right.
Yeah, let's see what else. Council Road, and this one I recuse myself, so if you have any questions, Laura or Clark can handle it. It's in your Salt Place. Want to put a pavilion up over there for the residents. And 2530 Balltown Road, which is a Chinese Fellowship Church. They want to add a kitchen addition on the back. We don't see any problems with that. You just have to come through their parking. We don't expect to have to increase it, but it should work out fine. And just the waiting on applicant is that signage that's in the town right away for Health Farm. Sooner or later, you have to address that.
Very good. And where does that bring us?
So for zoning board, I had a typo here. It's actually 3 cases for May because one of them carried over from the last meeting. So 3 cases for May, all residential area variances. It's 2 fences, and the one that carried over was a solar panel in the front yard. The grants update. I know Rita and Jim McKinney have been working on Lions Park with Clark. The critical pedestrian grant, I'm still working on closing financing. I know the auditors had a question on that one. And then the linkage study grant we just covered. I'm hoping to have the MOU next week. For complete streets, we had a discussion about resident request on Birchwood Lane for speed bumps. Complete streets, heard the issues. They are looking into them. In the meantime, the police have also put out a monitor to see. One of the big complaints on Birchwood was that heavy trucks were coming down the road. So the police are going to use their data. They're super good at collecting data with all of their equipment that they've been getting to see if there's been a change and there's an increase in trucks. And
They're allowed on that road, though, aren't they?
well, no, not really. There is a weight limit on that road, and if you look at what the collector road is supposed to be, it's a little bit funky, and I can understand why cars don't always understand doing it. But when they're coming from Central or whatever, it's down by the
Shaker or
Yeah.
when they're coming from that road, it's Bly when you just take, when you just start coming north towards Niskayuna. And if you go straight, it becomes Bly and changes to or a different name. You're actually supposed to take a hard right and stay on Bly, but when you're driving down the road, it looks like you should just go straight. There isn't even a stop sign there. You actually have to take a hard 90-degree right on to Bly to stay on Bly, and that is where you're supposed to drive. But I can understand why people don't always understand, because it looks like you're just going straight, and then the road is technically smaller there. And the signage, and of course that intersection is the town of Colony. It's not in the town of Niskayuna. So I don't know that the signage necessarily shows up until you get to the town of Niskayuna. And I don't even think that you realize when you're on Bly Road, which is supposed to be a collector road, that if you continue going straight down Birchwood, you're going to get into a super narrow street that has a school right there on it. Like you wouldn't know.
And that's the heavy truck issue.
Yeah.
They, at Police and Public Safety meeting yesterday, they actually went over the results of that.
Oh.
And it didn't sound like speed was an issue, but they did have indication that there was some heavy truck traffic that they were looking at.
Yeah. So and that would be my guess, because it's actually Birchwood is a pretty narrow road. So it's not like Route 7 where you have 5 lanes and it feels like you can drive 80 miles an hour, but Yeah, so that was one of the things they were thinking, like if they put things, more signage in the town of Colony, which might be a heavy lift, but we should survive. And then, yeah, we're kind of trying to keep the trucks away from the intersection of Birchwood. The police are really good about that, for the record. Anytime I ask them a question, they're pretty much always willing to set up their equipment and use data to figure out what's happening. They're still working on their goals and priorities. They have drafted a full chapter of the comprehensive plan. It was released at the last meeting in April. And so they are trying to get community support from the remaining members of Complete Streets, and then they're going to bring that to the comprehensive plan committee either at the end of May or early June. They did schedule their bike rodeo event for June 15th. I'll just keep that on here so that we all remember. That should be very fun. And they've been having discussions about what the county is looking at doing for the bike lanes on Grand Boulevard. Pretty important to them, and trying to work with the county to make sure that we get something that is long-term for the future, the best thing for Grand Boulevard.
Will that bike rodeo be at Town Hall?
Yeah, and the idea is we're gonna have try and have a helmet giveaway and vendors again. We have a fairly active group of high schoolers that come to the Complete Streets meeting. High schoolers are very motivated for the Complete Streets bicycles, pedestrians. Like, they're very motivated to try and get the alternative transportations out there. So we have 3 high schoolers that are appointed to the Complete Streets. One of them comes very regularly, and he thinks that he might be able to get one of the bands at the high school to come and even play for free because they support the thing. So we might even have music at the rodeo this time. And then the idea would be, when people like the rodeo, you learn about bikes, you get, whatever you need. You can bring your bike for a tune-up, that kind of thing. But the other thing is, we'll have police taking people on, like the kids like to bike behind the police officer, like little rides to the rodeo. And then we're gonna have Complete Streets members stationed at the crosswalk on River to Blatnick and St. Joseph's to teach people how to use those push button crosswalks
Excellent.
so that they can get used to doing that loop and know that it's there.
Very good. All right.
For Tree Council, Arbor Day was great. We gave away over 400 trees.
400.
Yeah, we had,
Wow.
because we got them cheaper this year because Schenectady County let us buy them in bulk.
Run out?
Huh?
Did you run out?
We did not. We ended up with like 5 arborvitae at the end of the day.
That's by far the most trees you've given.
It is by far the most trees we've given away.
And the first time we haven't given them all away, I can
No, last year we gave them all away within like 45 minutes.
Yeah.
Oh, that
But
we
you
haven't
didn't
given.
give them all away.
Yes, it's been a while since we haven't given them all away. We had the the silent rings raptors, which everybody just always loves. We had a bunch of different booths. Like Matt came with his son and helped me give some things away. Jamie was there to do a welcome speech, which was really nice. Just a lot of really good times.
Mhm.
The one thing that we noticed that was different about this year versus last year, and we don't know if it was because it was sunny or like people didn't like waiting in line, but like last year we had that line from Town Hall and it wrapped around the building. So most people arrived before Arbor Day even started, and we had a line that was, hundreds of people long
Last year.
last year.
Yeah.
This year, the line never really got that long. So this year, like when the people were coming, it was much more spread out.
Mhm.
There wasn't that really high initial rush, but there was a good amount of people that came for, a full hour and a half. It trickled away at like 1:30, I'd say. But I mean, it was like people in and out. So it was interesting, and I don't know exactly why that was. Maybe they just didn't like waiting in the line last time.
Right. Yeah.
But we didn't have that huge line.
Well, last year we did the speech this year too,
Yeah.
but the line seemed to really accumulate when we were planting the tree and do the speech last year.
Yeah,
Was that as long this year?
no.
Yeah.
And we actually had the line prepared to be long. We had a book so that if you were waiting in line, you could walk along and read a tree related book so that people could have something when they were in line.
Mhm.
And then we were like, didn't have a huge line, but we did have a large amount of people. The silent wings after people asked. I think we probably easily had 300 to 400 people there, maybe even more.
That's great. Excellent.
And then we also received a lovely thank you from one of our residents who said it was an incredibly good organized event, which I hardly ever get thank yous. We all know we hardly ever get thank yous. So I sent it to like everyone. And then the other thing that they've been working on is because they don't have a lot of planning projects right now. There isn't a lot of projects that have a lot of clearing related to the planning board. So they've been working with the highway department on a new way of getting street trees planted, and that involves them sort of scouting out the locations and meeting with homeowners. And so the tree planting subcommittee and myself have a meeting at 2:30 on Monday. I believe we are working on region. We're gonna go there and try and find five locations to plant trees on region that are on our planting list and see if that helps the highway department out. And Bill announced that at the town board meeting, which made me happy to make sure that everybody's on board with the new plan. Dart couldn't make it today, but we had a really good discussion about the natural resource inventory. That's our DEC grant. We've been meeting monthly. We have already gained quite a bit of community support for the first natural resources walkthrough, which is May 25th, Saturday. We've got Boy Scouts coming, possibly Girl Scouts coming to potentially earn their badges for outside studying. We got high schoolers set to come. We've got members of the community that are really interested in coming. So we've got quite a bit of people that are going to do the first walkthrough for us, which is the May 25th. And I recommend anybody who likes to go outside to come.
And what exactly are they looking for when they're out walking?
So what they do is our consultant is essentially a biologist, ecologist expert from Yale, and he will walk through the community, and you may have walked this path 100 times, but you may not have noticed what he will notice.
Mm-hmm.
So he'll take you through and he'll find species and he'll identify native plants and just like look and see how the ecosystem is working, and he's super passionate about it. So he shows everybody what's there that you probably walked by 100 million times but didn't realize why it's so important and what and it's fun, right? Because he sees things that even I never see. And even in Blatnick Park, like I think he found 300 species of things at Blatnick Park.
Oh.
The last time that he was there, and all he was doing was walking from near the dog parking thing to the forest, and he identified 25 different birds and all these different wildflowers, and it's really fun.
Now, is the new Mohawk Park going to be part
That
of
is
that?
in the inventory. I actually think that is on this walk too.
Excellent.
In the very early morning from 9 to 11, he's doing River Road Park. And then I think 11 to noon, he's doing the park that the Liz Casper trails down by on Maple Ave, down by the end of Pierce Road.
Uh-huh.
And then from 1:30 on, he's gonna do the Mohawk Hudson Bike Hike Trail between Lions Park and Blatnick Park. And I think the idea is that you're gonna park at Lock 7 and walk in one direction and then walk in the other section. And aside from the community outreach, which is an important part of the grant, he's also inventorying what's there so that we know what we have in our natural resources, and kind of looking around and seeing what open space that's adjacent to our property that could be really useful to protect. It's got the same type of habitat, but he always says, don't worry, we're just staying on town property, looking out into the world. Oh. The other thing they've been working on is the greenhouse gas inventory. Margie has been very helpful with me. I've been collecting the bills from finance and giving them to our contractor to do the government action or the government greenhouse gas inventory plan. And we are hoping, but it's a very tight timeline, to be able to submit all of that to DEC by July. And if we do, we may be able to become Climate Smart certified this year, but if not, The next round for submittals is like December and it's next year. It's a lot of work to do the next 2 months, so we'll see, but Margie's been very helpful. That's so good. So thank you for me. Then the last thing I wanted to, report is that we've been working on the submittals for the clean energy community. We talked about that at our last meeting. We're trying to reach a level of points where we can get some rebate grants for the town of Niskayuna. And they did approve our energy training. So I'm gonna look and see if that bumps us up to the threshold of the $10,000 rebate. We'll see. The other one that we are pretty sure we can get a $5,000 rebate on is an EV campaign. So we've scheduled the EV festival for July 20th. Hopefully that's when the EV car people for the festival region can come. And essentially they just park, 20 EV cars or so in the parking lot. We want to have it be the same time as the farmers market and just shift them all back so they don't interfere with the parking. But that way people can come and see the EV cars, and it's good to talk to the owners because sometimes people just still have range anxiety or think that maybe it wouldn't work for them. And they can be like, well, I have 3 kids and have to go to, 10 different soccer games across the state. And how does that work with an EV vehicle? And then somebody's standing there and they're like, oh, I have 3 kids too, and we did that all the time, and this is how we did, so like that's just the way that it helps because people, you can Google as much as you want, but it's good to actually have a human that has lived it. So the last time we did one, it was very popular. And once we submit all that to DE, or it's actually NYSERDA, we get credit for every EV that's purchased by a town of Niskayuna resident. And if we get up to if we get up to 10, then that's when we get a $5,000 rebate.
So the last one we did was a couple years ago, yes?
The last one,
Selling the stack?
the last one we did was when we did the community solar campaign where we showed everybody how they could enroll in community solar to reduce their energy bills.
Okay.
And we got $5,000 from that, and we used that $5,000 to do the LED lighting at the Avon Crest pickleball courts. And then before that, my inspectors took energy training and we got $5,000 to do the composting giveaway, which was super popular.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, it was.
Are there any grants still available for municipal vehicles?
Yes, they always, as far as I know, that's a rebate. It's a zero emission vehicle rebate from New York State is rolling. It's always
How
available.
much does that fund?
It depends on the type of vehicle. If it's like a heavy duty vehicle, it can be a lot. It can be up to like, because the heavy duty vehicles are like $90,000. So the grants can be like 70.
Wow.
But like,
What do you need?
I'm just thinking for the truck that we drive for the engineering office,
like,
it's getting quite old.
yeah, so if it's like light duty, kind of regular residential, I think the rebates are up. I'll look for you. I think they're somewhere in the $7,500 range.
So for like a pickup truck?
It could be anything from a pickup truck to a small SUV. So we can have.
Are municipalities using EV heavy vehicles yet?
Not really.
No, right?
Some of them are,
Are they
but
really?
you get a lot bigger grants for the heavies because, so the smaller trucks have proven themselves. You don't have to push them as hard. So now they're shifting the subsidies to the heavier ones to try and turn that corner for
You
municipalities.
could save a boatload of money. Right?
It'd be difficult for certain operations, but like, I don't think you could plow with one. Because I think the drain on the battery would be such that, and then the way that they're running all the time, you use it, then have to go put it away for a while to charge.
Yeah, they, I'm trying to think, cause I went to a heavy EV fair, in Latham, and they were using, like delivery vehicles, delivery vehicle fleets,
Big
like
van?
Amazon, yeah, like
Yeah.
the package fleets.
Something that at the end of the day, you can
Those were
charge
really
overnight, then
good.
it's ready.
They also had like skid steers and stuff that
Yeah.
were 100%
Mhm.
electric. That
That
that have a lot of torque, like the guys that end up driving them love them. But they didn't have like, I didn't see like plows and stuff like that. I haven't really looked into those. But they also push obviously buses, which not a big deal for us, but and there's another heavy that they push. I'll have to go see what it was.
So it wouldn't be good for like,
Garbage trucks they have.
oh, do they?
Mhm.
Something that has, I think, a set schedule would probably be good.
Yeah.
But something that's a more of a, like emergency response vehicle,
Right.
like a water department or a plowing.
Yeah, so
truck.
like some municipal governments do trash pickup and they're creating electric
Mm.
fleets for
Yeah.
trash, and it's been great. I love it. Yeah, and they're big. I mean, they're big, heavy electric vehicles, but they work just fine.
Garbage trucks woke me up this morning at 5 o'clock. Up and down.
Uh-oh, you have to-
Oh, good Lord.
I'll tell Ken, he's very good at calling them. They're not supposed to be there that early. You know
Oh,
that,
no.
right?
Ah,
No, yeah. Tell, do you know, if you know what the company is, he'll call them and tell them where they were.
I let you know.
They're not supposed to be there that early. And then the last thing the CEC is, they had a busy meeting last, Wednesday, is that they are going through things that they regularly request from applicants to make like a CAC site plan checklist so that applicants can kind of see what their questions are before they come to the CAC meeting and be ready to talk to them about it. So, should be good. And, Claire, I just wanted to say, it was actually the ARB that wants the numbers on the building, just so the ARB did pick it. Did you want to update them on anything, Claire?
That's exactly what I was going to say. We had our last meeting on April 17th. And yeah, the ARB gave us some really nice input on, as Kevin mentioned, there were 2 signage projects coming through the planning board. Our code allows 8 square feet of facade, 1 8 square foot facade sign on a building in the, is it RP, I think, district. And we had a couple applicants in a multi-tenant building where some of the tenants wanted their own facade sign on the building. So it was nice that the ARB gave us some industry practice of normally you just put the street address on the building for wayfinding to get you to the building. And then you either use the monument sign at the street or some identification inside the building to get to the doctor's office that you're trying to get to. So it was nice. They helped provide that input for.
I see that on some buildings in Schenectady where you got like 10 signs on the
Yeah.
building with people in there, and it doesn't really work.
Right.
It's more confusing than anything.
Right. So the planning board had a good discussion
Yeah,
about
yeah,
that.
that makes a lot of sense.
So the ARB is also still working on 1861 Troy Road, which is Brookdale Senior Living, just to get a shed properly placed and documented on their site plan. And they're also doing some work on Lions Park, but I'm saving that for Rita. She's been helping out a lot on that. And then they're also working on, they reviewed 2890 River Road, which is a 3-lot subdivision. And there are 2 home plans for that have been submitted already. And kind of a nice thing, one of the members of the ARB is involved in that project. But the ARB is still saying, hey, we want to see the full package that we normally see to review these, and he's supplying that. So it's nice that they're kind of policing themselves and following their process, even for one of their own members. So that's nice to see. And their next meeting is on May 15th.
Very good.
Oh, yeah. And did you mention, Claire, they reviewed the Rosada Mart facade really quick? Because the Rosada Mart wants to actually, they want to like distinguish themselves so that when they do their renovations, it'll look like a new building. And so they decided to make a more residential like roofing. And so we sent it out to the ARB. They checked it real quick. They were okay with it. And then we reported to the planning board and they were okay with it. So I actually think when the Rosada Mart building's done, it's going to be really nice.
Yeah, instead of a flat roof, it's going to look much more in line with the neighborhood. Sorry.
And they're adding sidewalks and green space and everything. So when that whole thing is done, I'm hoping that it'll create a little transformative corner on Union Street. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the comprehensive plan committee, we're up to like about 240 responses to the survey. Like I mentioned before, we're gonna do a last push towards that. And we're gonna do, we'll have a table at NISCA Day and essentially just keep the survey open a week after NISCA Day. So our last push will be around NISCA Day. So like, okay, we're posting the survey. If you haven't If you haven't given us your input, please give us your input and then that'll be the end date on the survey. We've gotten a lot of good input and feedback from the survey so far. We had our third public outreach meeting at Fire District 2, very low attendance. But the people that did come were very wonderful to talk to. It was almost, in some ways, really nice because you really got to know them and really got some very deep input from them. But we are trying to reach out. We still do not have a lot of feedback from people who live on the Route 7 corridor, at least identifying as living on the Route 7 corridor. I still don't have a single response for people identifying as living on the Route 7 corridor. So
That's odd.
we're gonna do one more, I think, public outreach, try a little harder to gather more people, and we were looking at Stanford Fire District, so we'll have done Town Hall, Senior Center, Fire District 2, and then Stanford Heights, we're hoping we can do that. And the other thing is, we still need to update the RFP and get it out again. For building department, we issued another, reissued a notice in order to make sure that it was up to date with all of the timelines that we need to have. And we've been working with both, Attorney Finnan and Attorney Hess on this, and have a meeting scheduled with the owner on Monday, I think 11:30. I mean, our understanding, for those of you who don't know, there's been a storage pod on the site for a couple years now, which really had site plan approval from the planning board, but has expired, and it may be that it just has to be moved.
What's the ruling on storage pods in this came up?
You can only have them for 3 months. He did
Is there a
go,
size limit?
they are, though not prescribed, it's, the normal, like, the back of 18-wheeler. Truck, yeah.
Maybe like 20 feet.
Yeah, no, this one is like 20
Yeah.
feet.
And there's full size comics
Yeah,
box.
full-size box, yeah.
There's a big one across the street from my house. I know it's been there for a while, but I didn't realize that we had a code on that because I was liking it to the big caravans. What do you call it?
RVs?
Yes, the RVs. So we can have RVs in this. So I think you could have the storage pods, but that's not the case.
You can have RVs, but in
Yeah.
where you have to park them in your side or rear yard, you can't even park them.
That's true.
But there's a little bit of a difference if it's on wheels versus on the ground. But if it's a pod or like a Connex, where they get dropped off and they're in the front, yeah, you need a building permit for those. And the first 30 days is free, and then you can do 2 renewals for I think $30 each. So that is going to be kind of it's a little bit of a difficult position. We'll see what comes from that meeting. And then, as Clark mentioned, Brookdale, we're trying to tighten up the end of their site plan approval to make sure that it's in compliance.
And just to expand on that, everyone's on the same page in terms of the proposed shed, where they would place it. The next step is to just get a site plan drawing document. So they're very
Problem with the original submittal is that it was just not in character with the rest of the building. So we had to push back pretty hard to make sure that the improvements there are the right thing for everyone.
This is 3410 State talking about.
We're it's actually 2861 Troy Scansky Road. Yeah. So planning department, been working with Matt. Actually, Clark, do you want to do the update point so I don't have to keep talking so much?
Sure. I'll give a little update on that. As we talked about before, the planning department, engineering and highway are all working together on drainage, hotspots and looking towards an updated analysis. Matt and I met with a homeowner last Friday to go over their property. So, and anyone who has a real acute situation, we're, open to listening to them and showing them the stormwater system in their area to help them understand our existing system and how it works. So we're doing that. So we're looking for hotspots. And then we're looking at short-term solutions, anything that we can do to help on a short-term basis. while also looking at a bigger drainage analysis townwide to look at overall improvement. Now, we have an excellent 1991 drainage comprehensive stormwater analysis that was done in 1991 that, we've looked at. It looks to be very, very in-depth. It documents the whole system. So one of the things we're looking towards in the big picture is updating that for the whole town. And then if we identify a hotspot, we're looking at that specific portion of the 1991 study, kind of looking at if things have changed a lot or not, or possibly going in and just updating that area to analyze a local hotspot. So we're kind of looking short-term and long-term in parallel.
And that's the type of thing that won't change a whole lot, right? In 1991 drain analysis, the drain is going to be the same. It might just be wetter with the weather.
Well, I think in some places, I think in some
Yeah,
places it might not
yeah.
have changed, in some places it may have changed.
Oh, no
Correct.
kidding.
Anywhere that hasn't been developed may be very similar, but with all the development that's taken place since the 90s.
The topography change and.
Well, yeah, and the
pavement.
runoff rates have increased
Okay.
based on the surface. And then any closed drainage that's new, that will change how the runoff occurs. And I know Clark's been looking at that old
Mhm.
study, and part of the work that we want to do is update the mapping internally, and then also do an RFP to update that.
All right.
We're still working on the processes for the planning department. We tried a new thing where the planning board gets their packets 2 days ahead of time before we post them on Friday, kind of like the town board. And the general consensus was the planning board like that, so we're gonna try to keep doing that. The council road sidewalk, we are moving forward with the concept design. I still have to send the email to the town board notifying them of the contract in conformance with our purchasing code, which I meant to do yesterday, but I'll try and do today. And the Winnie Road easement, I'm still working on. Dr. Horton sent me an email that he couldn't come. Elena, did you have anything?
No, I don't have anything to add.
And then Rita, do you want to talk about all your Lions Park work?
Yes, and also I'm going to send you a copy, you and Clark a copy, or anyone else wants a copy of the report, because I did a synopsis of what we did.
Okay.
All right. Okay. Presently, as far as the Save Our America's Treasures grant, okay, right now I'm at the point of pulling all our data together, historical data together, and structuring the grant portfolio for it to be submitted with the application. Okay. Now at the park, where we left off that last meeting was Mr. Kenny and I met on April 16th to survey the outside, take photographs, and we weren't able to gain access to the interior of the building, right? But Stacy Thompson and I went out on the 26th. I'm sorry, Thomas. And one thing we Mr. Kenny and I did agree on was we needed a structural engineer, and also that the wiring, he noted that the wiring in the building, was very bad. They were having issues. Okay, so when Mr. Thompson and I went out, she took photos of the outside and the interior. All right, we noticed that okay, the exterior, the brick there's one brick, and from previous attempts to do repairs, as Mr. McKinney noted earlier. Okay, but there's an exterior walkway in the front of the right main entrance that needs repair. There's plywood over that, covering that, and what they did was that was the main entrance where counters are, and they switched the main entrance to the left side. All right, but they still have that board there, but they did that for safety's sake, the people entering and leaving. Okay, and we gained access. We do have access and everything to get in now. Mr. Charles Bergami, I'm sorry, from Park Services, right? He'll be able to give us access, and also we needed access to a utility room to check the electrical.
Okay.
All right, now I've done wiring most of my adult life. All right, because I was a data systems engineer. So what I can do is give you a look, see what the wiring looks like. Okay, this is electrical wiring. I don't deal with electricity, but what I do is I look at the wiring. Right now, the wiring that they have there is like the late 1800s, early 1900s wiring, where they in 1843 there was no inside wiring. So when they did run electrical wiring, they run it on the outside of the wall and across the ceilings. All right, so that's how this is run in. Now you have either two choices with that when it comes to, upgrading it. You can leave the piping that the wire is presently running through just for authenticity, for aesthetics, and then run wiring across the inside of the ceiling.
Mhm.
All right, the upgraded wiring. So you won't see it, but you'll have because I don't think that it would pass anything with the wiring presently. Uh, okay. Now, other than that, okay, we have on the left side and the on the interior, we have cracks and openings in the wall, okay, around the chimney flute, exposing the interior to the outside elements. Okay, they came in. Miss Maureen came in one day, and there were birds in there, and that was the only way she could see that they had gotten in. Okay, all right. This like things like all right. It appears like electrical wiring we already went through.
So, Rita, the goal is that you'll do all the documentation of what's happening at the Lions Park, and that's required for the grant that you're going to submit. And the idea would be the grant will be big enough to help with all of those things.
Yes, and one other thing is Miss Maureen Salsa, she said that she had contact with someone who does historical restoration, and I think Clark and I think I mentioned this, Clark, to you about having them come in and give like an assessment. Okay, that would be
Restoration.
free, right? So at least you'll have some kind of dollar figure when you submit for the grant. You'd know exactly what you would need.
Okay. Is it a rolling grant or is there a deadline for the grant submittal?
No, the deadlines are usually in the fall. So
Okay.
we're trying to get this done by the summer.
So Laura, that's the grant they're going after for looking at hopefully getting money to really improve the whole train station. And Jim McKinney has a document that he's used in the past, kind of an overall assessment that would help apply for that grant that he has done. I know he's done one on the Knott Memorial at Union College. He's done one. What's the other one, Rita, that Jim McKinney has done the report on?
Fort Johnson.
Yeah, Fort Johnson.
Oh, Fort Johnson?
Yeah.
He always tells me the Emily Dickinson Hall.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
So that's kind of a template that they're using to try to prepare for that.
Okay. How does the deck fit in with that? Are we holding off on the deck? Or are we still doing the deck? Did we decide?
We are working with DASNY to potentially adjust the funding,
And then do the Lions Park all as,
a historical grant.
yeah, that makes sense.
It does. And to try to address the entire,
Thing all at once.
the entire facility.
So we may,
And we think we could have a competitive grant.
I think that the type of work that requires for this grant is a pretty unique set and a lot of towns can't do it. So it's nice. We're probably competitive because we have these volunteers and that are helping us.
Yeah, I agree.
we may still apply to the DEC just to get that out of the way for the work on the deck, because we think having the DEC's approval would help in the grant process too.
So smart.
That's amazing. I can tell you guys have been working really hard and it's such an important building to us. I really appreciate that, Rita.
Oh, thank you. But you have to really give Mr. McKinney a big hand, because that man, he's been ill, but he's been right there the whole time. I mean,
Yeah.
none of this, I don't see any of this getting done with him.
Yeah, because you were saying at the last meeting, maybe we should do another resolution for him.
We've got to do something
Yeah.
bigger than that, though. We need something at Lions Park that's
Well,
gonna
like-
be there for a long time that really commemorate what Jim has done, because he is just, I mean, as long as I've been here, he's been doing and doing and doing and doing and doing. And the time that he's given, Reed, I'm sure just while you've been here is so many hours a week. And this has been going on for over a decade.
And he's amazing. You know what I wanted to ask though, if we could have like a part of the plaque program and have a plaque there, since that because right now he's in bad shape, and this may be his last job here. All right, and so we have a plaque there at the train station. I think that would be awesome for him.
Yeah,
We definitely do.
let's try to do that sooner rather than later. Absolutely. And I would have to be a really big plaque to put all of his accomplishments in there. So kind of pick and choose.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Rita. Is there anything else?
No, it's just that the building right now, there's a person occupying it. Okay, but as far as the floors, ceilings, and such, we're going into the roof next week on May 8th to check the inside and see the damage to the roof on the interior. But as far as outside, the ceiling, looks safe. The floors are sturdy, so we should be pretty well off.
Okay.
Very good. Okay.
And John, just, Rita mentioned Stacy Thomas. She's a member of the Architectural Review Board, and she does a lot of restorative architectural type work also. So
Okay.
she volunteered her time to go in and look at the
Mhm.
structural integrity of the roof and things.
Very good. Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I think we have a lot of volunteers to recognize, but Jim just really stands out to me as somebody that's absolutely really been phenomenal for the town, especially for Lions Park. Absolutely. Okay, is there anything further for the good of the order? Seeing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
One second.
All in favor? Aye. And we are adjourned.
Thank you. Thanks, Elena. Thanks, Rita.
Good night, everyone. I mean, good morning.
Hi.
Hello,
Hi.
hello.
Idiot.